You found us. You're tuned in to Wine in 9, where all you need to learn about wine in 9 minutes or less. Here's your host, Bob Cappuccino.
It's that time of year when we want to talk about giving gifts, but not just giving any gifts, giving sensible gifts. I'm so happy to bring in someone I've known and respected for a long time, Barbara Hay. She's a sommelier, a wine consultant, a gifted wine educator, and a really, really smart lady. So Barb, we only have 9 minutes. Let's get right to it.
Well, there's a lot of ideas out there, and a lot of them are a little bit fun. But, a lot of people are looking for things like wine aerators or decanters or even bottle openers. So it's always good to give some kind of wine key or a new interesting bottle opener. A lot of people like the rabbit because they're foolproof.
A wine key, more commonly called a waiter's corkscrew, is basically that very handy device that has a corkscrew and a foil cutter, and they both fold into the handle like a little penknife. It's a nice little gift. Barb, you also mentioned the rabbit opener. Now that's the device that lets you squeeze the top of the bottleneck and push down on the lever, which sends the corkscrew through the cork, and then you just reverse the lever and out comes the cork. I've used one of those. They're pretty handy, especially if you're opening up a lot of bottles.
A lot of people like them, but they can run a wide gamut of prices too, depending on which kind you get. Some of them have the little air capsule in them, which helps force the air to help pop it out. So you have to be looking at your price points as well.
Barb, how about motorized cork removers? Those seem to be so popular.
They're really great for a lot of people. I have a lot of friends who swear by them. But I find, after a while, once you have to replace a battery or something, they end up in the drawer and they don't get used as often. But they're a nice thing to show off and play with.
Barb, let's talk about aerators. You see a lot of those these days. I'm not quite certain about them, but what do you think? Do you think that the more technological aerators, which usually are a lot more expensive, they work better than simply just decanting old school style?
They're really great. It depends on your price point as to which kind you get. I happen to find that there's a simple one called a soiree. It's an in-bottle wine aerator, and it's glass. You open up the bottle and you slide that in where the cork would have been. And as you pour, it circles the wine through and aerates the wine as you pour. Or put it into a nice, decanter and let it aerate that way.
I totally agree. Do you have any hints about aerating?
It depends on the age. And a lot of times you need to open it at least an hour before you plan on drinking it, just to make sure. But sometimes when you're doing some of the Italian wines, you need more than an hour. In a decanter, that will help speed it up. Or if you put it into, the little aerator that goes on the top of your bottle, it might take maybe 10, 15 minutes.
What I found in the past is actually if you just decant it, pour it from the bottle into a decanter, and then pour it back into the bottle, and then back into the decanter. Each time you do that, it's like aerating the wine for about a half an hour. But that's always worked for me. Anyway.
So putting them in a decanter helps move it a lot faster, and aerating them moves it a lot faster.
I saw something the other day that was rather unusual. It was a travel aerator. Basically, it's a thin handle, for lack of a better description, and you open it up and you turn it on. There's like a little aerating capsule, and you stick it in your wine glass, and you let the wine aerate with this device. I think they're kind of crossing the line here, but...
It seems a little gimmicky to me, because if you want to aerate with your glass, that's why you swirl it. You'd get the air into it much faster if you swirl it.
Do you have a rule of thumb for that?
Well, most of the time we tell people to swirl it. It helps you get better flavor from the wine. When you first pour the glass, you just swirl it to let the aromas come forward. You drink it and you can keep swirling it till you get the right flavor or the right aeration. That becomes a personal taste at that point.
It's kind of cool to do as long as you make sure the wine stays in your glass and not all over yourself and friends.
The idea is to put the glass on the table and hold your fingers on the base of the glass and move it around that way rather than hold it in your hand, flashing it on your friends and on their carpet.
So maybe a wine stain remover is also a good gift.
Oh, yes. That's happened to me. Red wine on a white sofa is always a fun thing to get out.
I'm talking with Barbara Hay, my good friend and a great wine expert. Another wine accessory that I think is rather gimmicky but I'd like to get your take on it. It's a wine filter. You place this plastic device on top of your glass, insert a disposable filter, and let the wine flow through. What do you think of that, Barb?
Most of the wines are filtered at the winery using one of several filtration methods that they use. Sediment usually forms in a red wine when the wine has aged a few years. Some of those tartrates and sediments are really a good thing, and you don't mind them, but that's the only time we've ever filtered it.
There is an item that I'd really like a lot, and it's simply a good old champagne stopper. A lot of people don't even know that they exist, but they are really very good, and you should have a couple of them around the house, especially if you like to drink sparkling wines.
I actually use them. Champagne's one of those things that sometimes you don't finish all your champagne, which is hard to believe. But because of the bubbles, your cork will work itself out no matter what. So they have special stoppers you can put on them, and they work really well to hold the wine from losing all of its bubbles between then and the next time. But the bottle has to be partially consumed. Otherwise, it could just blow the top off on you, and we don't want to do that.
What about these cool thermal wine glasses? Corksicle is one brand, but there are others. But I don't know how they work for wine.
The thermal glasses are great if you're going to the beach and you don't want to break anything, and you want to keep your temperature the same, but they make a great gift idea for those people who like the great outdoors.
Barb, what other ideas would you suggest?
Well, there are quite a few wine and food pairing books out there if you know somebody who's a cook who likes wine. And they're really quite nice books. They make really great gifts.
I think wine classes or tastings make a very nice gift, and it's unusual too. And they don't have to be expensive, but you can find them from everywhere from very serious courses to more simple basic courses that you'll find at different local high schools and junior colleges.
I love the idea of gifting wine classes. A lot of people enjoy them. A lot of people like to do the various wine tastings. They run the gamut in prices and styles, so those are really great gifts for a lot of people. They get to try new foods and try new wines. There are a lot of do-it-yourself wine places where you can make your own wine. And I know people who appreciate getting the gift of learning how to make their own wine, anything from a full barrel to a quarter of a barrel.
Wine and beer making have become very popular, but we'll stick with wine. How about a wine aroma kit? These little kits that contain vials of essences and flavors that usually used to describe wines by reviewers?
I received one as a gift when I first started going into wine. I couldn't really sense the smell. I found it was better for me personally to go to the grocery store and stand there smelling the peaches and smelling the blackberries and things like that. But I really had a good time trying to guess what the oils were and the scents were. Some of them, were really very helpful because I had no idea what those were. So yeah, it would make a great gift.
How about wine journals?
I get at least 3 of those a year from my friends. And, you can peel off the label of the bottle, you can put them in the book. This way you remember what you had. But today, most people like the wine journal on their phone. They use a wine journal app.
Barb, this has been fun, and I think very useful to our listeners. But I hope we hit the mark and made some sense of wine gifts.
I hope.
Thanks so much.
Thank you.
I've had the great pleasure of talking to Barbara Hay, wine sommelier, consultant, and educator. I'm Bob Cappuccino.
We hope we used your 9 minutes wisely. Look for Wine in 9 across social media. Thanks for listening to Wine in 9.